Banner's okay? Okay. Okay. Bye. Yes.
All right, I want to thank you for joining us. We are interrupting your normal programming to bring you a live update on the two storms heading towards the Gulf Coast and just how Texas is preparing to deal with them. Let's listen in to what they're saying down in Houston.
So we will give some updates. Here we go again. This has been a tough year for us, but so far we've escaped extreme weather from hurricane season. Of course, now in the third year anniversary of Hurricane Harvey, we're facing the threat of a potential hurricane bearing down on us. The good news and the bad news is that Laura is still somewhat unpredictable. Here's where we're at right now. Thankfully, any substantial threats from Marco to our region have receded. We expect it's coming ashore. We'll have minimal impacts in our area, maybe some light showers and thunderstorm. We must now focus on Laura. Laura is expected to strengthen to a hurricane tomorrow, making landfall very early Thursday morning, somewhere between Freeport, Texas, south of Houston, and Lake Charles, Louisiana. Depending on where it goes, it could have minimal impact in our region, or it could have very significant storm surge. The bottom line is this. This is not Harvey. This is not Imelda. This is not Allison. This is Laura. Every storm is different, and we urge folks not to use any prior storm as a template for what could or will happen. What we need to do is prepare for the worst. What we do know is that the storm, we see a higher potential for surge impact, not so much the potential for flooding, but the impact of wind. And if that happens, we have to remember what we've said before, which is that we hide from the wind and we run from storm surge, from seawater. That is what will guide our decision making here. If we see that seawater, that surge, then it would come time to take other steps. We're no strangers to emergencies here in Harris County. Since March, we've been activated for COVID-19, so we've been exercising that muscle memory of emergency response. Over the past few weeks, we've been in close touch with state, local, federal partners, fire, police, flood control, transportation, etc. I've been in touch with other governments around the region, so we're not making decisions in our own silos. The Red Cross is prepared to open emergency shelters. If sheltering is required, folks should not fear visiting those shelters. They've worked with FEMA, with the CDC to take all precautions related to COVID-19. We're preparing for possible debris removal. We've pre-designated areas for staging, response, and recovery resources if necessary. We're in touch with Centerpoint for restoring power if that were to become an issue. Pollution Control is ready to deploy their emergency monitoring team for air and water pollution monitoring to make sure we hold folks accountable. We've been in touch with school districts. We're leaving no stone unturned with our preparation. And now it is your turn, the community's turn. Right now, residents across Harris County and in our region should be making preparations for landfall of a hurricane. That's what we need to be prepared for. I've always said our strategy should never be to hope for the best. We don't have the luxury of time, so the time to prepare is right now. We can't wait for another forecast hoping it's going to improve. Make sure you have a full tank of gas, that you have supplies for your home, including medications, PPE, face coverings, hand sanitizer. Think about what you may need if there were prolonged power outages. Don't forget about your pets, your furry friends. For folks living along the coast, listen to your local elected officials about if and when to evacuate, should that become necessary. We won't have a clear forecast until probably tomorrow morning, so the turnaround will be very quick. Anyone along the coast should prepare as if you were going to be asked to evacuate. You should be ready to go at a moment's notice and take evacuation orders seriously. Visit and register for Ready Harris alerts at readyharris.org, and there's all manner of resources there for you to look at. Time right now is the most precious resource, so let's not waste it. To the residents of Harris County, once we get a clearer idea from the forecast of whether we'll be in the direct hit path or not, we'll have just a matter of hours to make preparations. So remember that. Please take advantage of time now. We'll get through this together. We always shine brightest in the toughest times. And so we're going to continue pulling together. No one has grit quite like Harris County. And we'll come out of this stronger no matter what comes our way. Stay safe. Stay tuned. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mayor, for your leadership and for being here. We'll hear from Mayor Turner, then I'll repeat my remarks in Spanish, and everybody here will be available for questions.
Thank you, Judge. And let me just say that I agree with all of the remarks that you have said in terms of preparation. So I will try not to repeat what you have already said. And thank you for your leadership. We find ourselves here again, but the good news is that we are battle tested, and so we are ready to deal with this situation as well. I'm here today with Chief Buick of the Office of Emergency Management. We have already activated OEM, and it will remain activated until both of these storms have passed through our area. Chief Pena is also here with the Houston Fire Department, and I want to say that all of our departments are now actively engaged in their preparation. And quite frankly, everyone should have already started making preparations. This is kind of historic with two storms coming into the Gulf. I agree with what Judge Hidalgo said. Marco, it seems this now is a non-factor, and so we are all focusing on Laura. Let me just say that, until there is more certainty, we're all carefully watching this storm, and we will know sometime tomorrow about which direction it's going to take, whether or not we're going to be directly in play or whether or not it is going to veer to the east and then go up north. We do not anticipate this storm to stall. From all indications, it will come through. Probably about late Wednesday, could be about the midnight hour or so, and then somewhere between, let's say, 8, 9, 10 o'clock that morning on Thursday, it should be to our north. So we don't anticipate it to stall. I want to reemphasize what Judge Hidalgo said. This is not Harvey. Okay, this is not anticipated to be a heavy rain event. So this is not Harvey. It's not Tropical Storm Imelda, and this is Laura that we are dealing with. Let me just also reemphasize the importance of us being prepared to monitor the weather reports, just like we are doing that. You should be doing it, so you will know where things are, but monitor the weather reports and certainly be prepared. We do expect this to be somewhat of a wind event, and so to the extent people, we're not necessarily telling people to board up their windows or anything like that, but if you want to just have some supplies available just in case, and we'll have a better sense tomorrow, then that's fine. But be prepared. Have some food that won't spoil in case the power goes out. You don't want to have a refrigerator full of meat, for example. And so make sure you're taking care of that. And because we've already been doing so much as it relates to COVID, quite frankly, most folk already have taken some steps in being prepared, social distancing and all of that. So you're going to add some other things to your hurricane preparedness kit, and that will be the mask, and that will be the sanitizer and the wipes. All of those things should be a part of your hurricane preparedness kit. Let me just say, because this will be more so, if it comes this way, a wind event, Public Works will not necessarily be putting out the barricades this time. And I want to underscore that because we don't want things to turn into a missile, so to speak. And so you may not see the barricades out as much. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be cautious and very careful. But we are concerned by the fact that this could potentially be more of a wind event. And so let me encourage you, one of the things in your preparation around your house, if there are certain things that can, that the wind can grab a hold of and send it flying, you want to remove those type of events or tie down those type of events, that type of preparation. So kind of look around your house, and if there are things that could turn into a missile, so to speak, you want to remove those type of things. You want to tie down certain things, patio furniture, for example, that can start flying, all of those type of things. So look around your house because this will be more so like a wind event. We are very sensitive to our homeless population that's on the street. And so I've asked my team to start planning to work to remove, to have them.
Okay, you have been listening to Houston and Harris County officials updating us on the storms. Tropical storm Marco will not impact Texas to any real degree, but we do still have to focus on Laura. We'll be updating this story on WFAA News at 4. If you're watching on air, we'll send you back to normal programming. And if you're with us on a digital platform, meteorologist Kaylee Dion continues our coverage in just a moment.
Disability community to take advantage of the STEER program, where you can register and you can call
All right, I'm meteorologist Kaylee Dion at WFAA here at just about 1:30 in the afternoon. We just had an update from the National Hurricane Center on both storms. And some good news in regards to Marco and rapid weakening going on. So we have a lot to talk about right now. I'm going to break down all the details. I know a lot of us in North Texas wonder, are we going to be impacted by Laura? Family and friends in Southeast Texas, do we have to worry about them? Should they evacuate? We're going to go over the latest and what the thinking is at this point. So here's the radar loop of the tropical storm Marco. Still has not made landfall. It's staying just off the coast. Let's look at the radar loop here. I have a wide look at the Gulf here, but I want to zoom in a little bit closer here to show you the circulation is just to the south and east of southeastern Louisiana. What you're seeing impacting the Florida Panhandle, that's really the outer bands of this storm. It's a very unorganized storm. So what you're used to seeing is an eye, and it's very clear, and you can really see the picture. But Marco was torn up by the shear in the Gulf of Mexico. That's great because we like that. Less damage, but still heavy rainfall, tornadoes a concern with the outer bands as they move on to the Florida Panhandle. So really from Panama City Beach right now, all the way over towards Santa Rosa Beach, Rosemary Beach, Destin included in this as well, all the way over to Orange Beach in Alabama, Gulf Shores, Alabama, also starting now to see some impacts there. So that's where the main impacts are at this point. We do have some strong whip currents. But the good news is, if we look here at the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, it is weakened to the point where winds are at about 40 miles per hour. That's still strong. That's still, like they were saying in the press conference, for Southeast Texas with Laura, if you have things outside that can be blown around, you get those anchored down because that's what could happen with these type of winds that are with Marco. But all of the tropical storm warnings and watches, all of the storm surge warning and watches, gone with Marco. They've been discontinued now because of the weakening with this storm. It's moving to the northwest right now. What we are expecting here moving into the really overnight hours tonight and into Tuesday is a shift to the northwest. And that's when we expect it to make landfall. So overnight, late tonight, going into early Tuesday, rapid weakening. So by the time it's over southern Louisiana, we're talking about an unorganized area of moderate to heavy rainfall. That's going to continue to kind of slowly meander its way over to south and central Texas as a blob of rainfall. So that's what we're going to be looking at, and it's going to completely kind of fizzle out as we go into Wednesday morning. So by the time we get to Wednesday morning, Marco will be no longer. So it could bring some nice rainfall to spots from Waco, some south portions of North Texas could see a little bit of moisture pull up north, which we would love to see. But overall, main concerns with Marco, we really don't need to be concerned with this storm. But Laura's a different story. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on Laura. So the latest update from the National Hurricane Center as of 1 o'clock is 60 mile per hour winds, gusts up to 70. We've seen Laura steady increase in intensity yesterday to about 65 miles per hour. Then it kind of backed off a little bit. What's happening is it's interacting with land, and that really interrupts these type of storms. So it's technically not overland. It's the main circulation point with the storm is over water, but it's still going to have a hard time until it gets past Cuba. Once it gets past Cuba, though, it's going to rapidly intensify. So right now, it's cooking. It's moving to the west-northwest at about 20 miles per hour. So if we look at the timing here, it does look like if we put this into motion, it enters the southeastern Gulf of Mexico by tomorrow morning. So less than 24 hours out, and it'll enter the Gulf of Mexico. Then from a tropical storm, when it enters the Gulf of Mexico to landfall, it could rapidly intensify to a Category 2 storm. I really don't want to focus on the actual intensity of the storm because until tomorrow, when we get this storm into the Gulf of Mexico, we're going to still be kind of back and forth in the intensity and the track. But either way, hurricane force winds making landfall along the Texas and Louisiana coastline. We've seen it shift to the west more and more over the last really several hours because of the models coming into good agreement with the track of this storm. So Category 2 storm, that means look at Houston. You can see Houston just out of the cone of uncertainty, but parts of southeast Texas under the cone of uncertainty. So I don't want anyone to let their guard down. I don't like to hype. I don't like fear. So do I think evacuations need to be underway at this point? No, I think you need to watch. I think we make big decisions as we go into the day on Tuesday. Then look at this. As it goes up along the Texas and Louisiana coastline, it takes a sharp turn to the north and east. And that is because of a frontal boundary that's going to be approaching North Texas from the north and the plains. It's going to be approaching very slowly. It's still going to be well to the north of us, but it's going to help steer that storm away fairly quickly, pulling a lot of that moisture out with it. So the impacts, I do think we will see some here in North Texas, which we'll talk about in just a second. But that turn and pulling that moisture out is going to limit as far west as it's going to go. So what I want to show you here that's going to really come into play here once Laura gets over Cuba. We've talked about the Gulf of Mexico. We talk about the warm waters and how it really fuels these storms. It ignites them, especially when you're talking about 86-degree temperatures. That's 2 degrees above normal in the Gulf of Mexico for this time of year. So it gets in there. Unlike Marco, which you're thinking, okay, well, Marco got in there and it really struggled. Well, the difference between Marco and Laura is Marco had a lot of shear to battle, and that kind of rips it apart. Laura, not going to have that. So the path that it's going to take it, it's kind of like an interstate. It's going to just take it right up very easily into the Gulf Coast. And so with those warm waters, it's really going to help this storm intensify. And the farther west the track is, so we've seen it move a little bit farther to the west, each model run, the farther west it is, the longer it's in the Gulf of Mexico. We want to limit, we want to limit the time it's in the Gulf of Mexico for sure. So here's, a lot of people ask, okay, especially with these two storms, their paths have changed so much. How do you even know what you're talking about? Well, we do. These storms are driven by other parts of our, Mia, I still need to finish this. She doesn't like talking about hurricanes. If you look at this area of high pressure, off to the east of the Florida coastline, this is what's really driving these storms. So it's right off to the coast of the Atlantic coast. But watch, as we move to the next few days, it pushes farther to the west. That's what's pushing Laura a little bit farther to the west. And that's what's driving it. And then it'll eventually make its way north and get picked up by that frontal boundary as we go into and making landfall. So that's the best way to kind of explain that area of high pressure. The winds around it kind of push it at where it needs to go. So if we look at both of these storm tracks at once, I want to show you this because I really want you to pay attention to the fact that by the time that whatever's left of Marco makes landfall, Laura's not even in the Gulf of Mexico yet. So they won't even be in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. So all this talk of 2 hurricanes in the Gulf, well, technically they won't be in the Gulf at the same time. And by the time Laura even gets close to the coastline, Marco will have started to fizzle out over the southeastern portions of Texas. But the tracks will interact. So that doesn't mean the storms are interacting. That means the people impacted will be impacted by whatever's left of Marco, which won't be much, which is good. We like that, to what we see with Laura. And that will be today through Wednesday will be the impacts of Marco, which would be heavy rainfall in some spots, some winds gusting here and there, but by the time it gets to southeast Texas, it's going to be just light to moderate rain in pockets. Then you've got the storm surge, you've got the heavy rainfall, and you've got the winds that you're going to deal with as we go talking about Laura. Do you want to come in here? Didn't think so. All right, so then as this makes its way inland, it will quickly start to lose intensity, but still Category 1 along the Louisiana-Texas border in northern Louisiana. So here's what I want to show you with these spaghetti plots. We've talked about these. I know a lot of you are familiar with them. They're all the different models that help us track these storms. I think everybody from just south of Galveston along the coastline all the way to New Orleans still needs to be on alert with this storm, because until it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, we will not know exact track of this storm. Now, we know the steering features, but still, when a storm is interacting with land, it interrupts the circulation. It could move the center of circulation a few miles here and there, and that changes the path completely. So that's why we say, let's wait till tomorrow. We'll have a better understanding of what's going to be going on. But as of right now, if we look at our timecast and we focus on both storms, here's Marco, Tuesday, 6 o'clock in the evening. We've got rainfall stretching from Jackson, Mississippi over to just to the north of Houston. It's going to continue to kind of turn into a few showers here and there, Huntsville, Houston, Waco. You can see it right about 5 o'clock in the morning Wednesday. Here comes Laura into the picture. Laura, as we move in, you can see a little bit better organization there. And the latest run with this model, which is the European model, takes it right along the Louisiana-Texas border. Really close. I mean, if this track moves a little bit farther to the west, then we got to talk about Houston to Beaumont dealing with some major impacts. Right now, the major impacts with these type of storms, hurricanes, is going to be the right quadrant of the storm. So that means the eastern side of the storm. So most of the coast of Louisiana is going to be in the strongest storm surge with a track like this. But winds are going to continue to spread out into southeast Texas. And then if we move up into North Texas, for those of you watching that want to know, hey, are we going to see anything out of this? Look at the Thursday at 5 o'clock in the morning. We've got the storm Category 1 status still from Shreveport down to center. And so we could see East Texas dealing with tropical storm force winds as well as heavy rainfall. Farther to the west toward the Metroplex, really could have breezy conditions, but it does look like we could squeeze out a little bit of light rainfall scattered here and there. Cloud cover around through Thursday morning. Then it starts to pull off to the north and east. This is when that storm takes a turn. But we will keep some moisture around here, especially for northeast Texas, through 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And then as we go into Friday night, we will start to say bye-bye to that rain. Here's a quick look at some of the maximum wind gusts. These will change as this the intensity of the storm changes as well. But I did want to show this for those of you in the eastern portions of Texas. 40 to 50 mile per hour winds as farther south and east you go in North Texas, 30 to 40 potentially, depending on that track. So again, something to watch out for, something to prepare for as we move forward. Still a lot of uncertainty with that, but I want you to be prepared. Here's a look at the latest rainfall forecast for the next 10 days. And it stayed really a quarter of an inch to 3/4 of an inch for the Metroplex over the course of at least the last 3 days since I've been watching this very closely. Along East Texas, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to say, okay, it's going to be 1 to 3, it's going to be 1 to 5 inches of rain. So we're just going to have to wait to see the exact track of Laura. But it does look like we could see at least a little bit of rainfall here in North Texas as we move forward. So we're going to be keeping our eye on the tropics. Again, here's a look at satellite and radar. 2 storms to talk about. One that's really fizzling out, which is good, but still causing a problem along the Florida Panhandle, and then eventually along the Louisiana coastline overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. But then I do think anyone from Galveston Bay all the way to New Orleans still needs to keep a very close eye on Laura and the impacts, because there's nothing standing in her way. So once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, it could really intensify quickly and could move a little bit farther to the west or east, depending on what happens once it gets over Cuba. So I know I went over a lot of information here, a lot of time. I will continue to do these updates. The entire WFAA weather team will continue to do these updates on air, not only on YouTube, but also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll be all over this for you to make sure that we are giving the latest information so that you can be prepared, as well as maybe some family and friends farther to the south and east.